Ah! Ho, ho, ho! It's Christmas, you fuckers! Yes! Happy Christmas, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I also hope that I'm not currently in the Premiere chat right now, because I'm supposed to be driving, and if I'm in the Premiere chat, chances are I should not be texting and being in the Premiere chat when I'm taking a 3-hour road trip to the next town over! Hey! TBA! Focus on the fucking road, mate! Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about your Christmas present, because that's what this is. It's a Christmas present for the fans! Regularly on Discord and on Tumblr, I get asked how Albus from Bastard Warrior goes up against different characters from my universe. How does Albus fare against Makaro, Mahan, or Gilvar? I don't even know. The point is, I thought, how about I just make a video and I set the standard so no one has to ask me again. Now, I will be using only Bastards Warrior Albus, not Bastards vs. Zombie Albus, because Bastards vs. Zombies Albus is pretty much the solo king. He solos most, if not everyone, in my entire universe. Yeah, he might be a little bit overpowered. So using Albus York, the original, we will be conducting a standardized test to see how good everyone is against Albus fucking York. So, are you ready? I know I sure am. Alright, let's go. I almost forgot, let's do some ground rules too. Rule number 1, no outside interference. That means no weird trappings and stuff. No environment kills. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so none of that. Rule number 2, 0 prep time. You start with what you got, and you have no idea who your opponent is, so it's basically completely natural. That's also rule 3. The having the starter equipment, as in the equipment that you are known to have on you. Okay, let's get started. Albus versus Zed. Albus wins. There's really nothing more to say about that. Albus versus Makaro. Makaro wins, actually, surprisingly. Albus doesn't have superpowers, so Makaro kind of wins because even though he's not fully experienced in combat as Albus is, Makaro can balance it out with demonic power if he goes that far. So generally speaking, if Makaro really needed to / wanted to, he could kill Albus if he pushed himself far enough into the demonic magic realm of the Demonomicon, blah 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 blah. Albus versus Frank. Zed can kill Frank, therefore Albus can kill Frank. Albus versus Mirren. Yeah, Mirren wins. Mirren has a little bit more combat experience, has superpowers. Also, he's been to Untempera and is the Dragonborn. That's basically like the Messiah or some shit. Mirren wins. Albus versus Mahan. Now, Mahan, this might be a little bit difficult because Mahan isn't exactly a combat veteran like Albus is. Granted, Mahan is also a wizard and has a average attunement of about, I think, like, he's in the 50s to 70s range, so he's definitely average, right? He's got that room temperature of magical attunement, so he can cast decent amounts of spells freehand. On top of that being a vampire, he's incredibly strong now, so yeah, in a one-on-one combat scenario, yeah, it's not gonna work out. Albus versus Demon Albus. Now, come on, this is obvious. Obviously, Demon Albus wins. Albus versus Hip Switch. Now, this might be a little bit difficult, all things considered. The difference between Hip Switch and Albus is that one was trained to show mercy, and guess which one that isn't? Albus. So, that by definition should mean that Albus wins against Hip Switch. However, Hip Switch is also not human, and because he's made of metal, because he's probably a bit stronger than humans, right? Albus would probably lose based on physical prowess. However, I'm gonna give this to Hip Switch. Albus versus Mahatma / Attila. I mean, he doesn't have any weapons. Mahatma, he's not really a fighter. Neither is Attila, to be completely honest with you. While he is aggressive, it's usually in the situations when he's got someone pinned down, if you know what I'm saying. So, I'm gonna say Albus wins this one basically by default. Albus versus Solara. Now, this one's a little bit tricky. They both have combat experience. Albus has slightly more combat experience. However, Solara has the ability to send people forward in time as well as age them to death if she touches them. So the question is, could Solara get close enough to Albus to touch him and age him to 1 billion and kill him? I'm going to say yes. Solara wins. Albus versus Atheon. Now, if you don't know who Atheon is, go watch Moses' Greatest Evil. I'm very proud of that video. Albus would defeat Atheon, however, because I know Atheon isn't as combat experienced as Albus. On top of that, despite being one of the legendary heroes, Atheon is known for leadership skills, not combat skills. Therefore, Albus probably wins. Also, Atheon only has a shield. What's he gonna do with that? Bash people? Oh, I guess he could bash people. But I mean, still, Albus versus Belgrade. Yeah, I think Albus still technically wins. I mean, again, Belgrade is one of those leader characters who doesn't exactly fight as much. So Albus does kind of win that one. Yeah. Albus versus Fenrir. Now, I think Fenrir would actually win against Albus because not only are they both heavily combat experienced, but on top of that, Fenrir is a Fengrul, which means that he has different attributes to a human. Probably something a bit more swift in terms of combat. So I really do believe Fenrir would beat Albus. Albus versus Odin. Odin wins. Odin not only has the knowledge to outsmart Albus in combat, but also has a decent amount of combat experience and adventuring experience as well. Although adventuring doesn't really matter too much, but I mean, he can figure situations out, is what I'm saying. Albus versus Okami. I mean, yeah, again, Albus loses to Okami. This isn't really fair for our poor little old human Albus here. He's kind of getting slaughtered right now. Albus versus Tyr. Huh. Now that one's a bit difficult. Albus versus Tyr, who would win? Tyr is big, but Albus has taken down big opponents before, so... But Tyr is also smart enough and also has some experience with those who fight in combat, but he's typically a behind-the-scenes guy and a strategist rather than someone who fights on the front lines. So I guess Albus wins, but then again, his skin is very tough to crack through, and with only the sword, even if he was to punch him, Albus would win. Albus would win. Albus versus Ulysses. Albus would lose, because Ulysses is ancient compared to Albus and has thousands of years of combat experience, therefore Ulysses wins hands down. Albus versus demon-possessed Albus with the sword. Yeah, obviously, demon-possessed Albus with the sword wins. There's not even a question there. Albus versus Devlin. Albus wins. Duh. Albus versus Dredge. Albus wins. I mean, do I really need to say it? Does anyone even remember Dredge? I mean, if you do, you're a real one. Love you guys. Albus versus Ryan. Now, this one is a little tricky because Ryan, of course, is a Jotun, and Albus is a human, which by default means that the Jotun would win because more combat experience, all this stuff. However, Ryan doesn't have all those memories of being Brandhelm. However, he also managed to tie in a fight against Stelius, who was also pretty fucking strong. So, although maybe Stelius doesn't have as much combat experience being a royal, but I'm not sure. I'll give it to Ryan. I'll give it to Ryan. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's got more ambition. No, not ambition. He's got more to him, and he can adapt to different fighting styles as well. So there's that. Albus versus Beinar. I think Albus would struggle with Beinar. However, I still think Albus would beat Beinar. None of the space pirates are really as combat experienced as Albus, so you're gonna see Albus just one-shot all of these. Albus versus Resper. Albus wins. Albus versus Heartburn. Albus wins. Albus versus Corndra. Yeah, Albus wins. Albus versus Forks. Forks claps Albus. Are you kidding me? The ability to turn light into energy and focus it into lasers and objects like Green Lantern? Yeah, of course Albus is going to fucking lose to that shit. You kidding me? Albus versus Evil Calamos. Ooh. Oh, actually, hang on. That one's tough. Because on one hand, you have Albus with all that combat experience, but the fact that Calamos, as a corrupted, brought back, multi-octopoid mind thing, also was able to take down, like, an entire fleet of space pirates by himself? Although they weren't really expecting him. In a one-on-one fight, fuck it, I'll give it to Calamos. Calamos wins! He gets a win! You're welcome! Albus versus Gilvar. Albus wins. I'm sorry, Gilly. I'm sorry, Gilly, my boy. But despite how much combat experience that Gilvar has, it's nothing compared to Albus. So yeah, Albus wins. Albus versus Haydar Gak. Now, when you first meet Haydar, he is basically a child. So yeah, Albus wins. Albus versus Hazel. Hazel wins. Hands down, Hazel is a star captain. You do the math. Albus versus Hecalite. Hecalite is weird. However, Albus kills him. Albus versus Kravitz. Do I even need to explain this one? Albus versus Loyal. Yeah, Loyal wins. Hands down. Loyal's a guardian angel who was previously a human with a bunch of combat experience from the medieval era, so yeah. Loyal wins. With angelic power and combat experience alone. Albus versus Lear. Albus wins. Albus versus regular Calamos. Albus destroys regular Calamos. Albus versus Dr. Outrageous! Yeah, Albus wins. Albus versus Hugin. Albus versus Munin. They both fucking die! Yeah, they did! Albus versus Servos. Servos wins, actually, here. Because Servos not only has thousands of years of combat experience, but he's also a vampire. Funny that. Albus versus Simon. Albus wins. I mean, yeah, Simon has combat experience, but Albus has more combat experience. And he's a bit stronger than Simon, so, you know. Although Simon does have a gun. So there's that, I guess. So I still think Albus wins because, again, stronger, probably can anticipate attacks a bit better, but yeah, no, Albus wins. Albus versus Switchfang. What a surprise! Albus fucking wins. Albus versus Tide. Albus wins. Albus versus Vision. Albus wins. Albus versus Bruises. Well, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Good enough for me. Albus wins. Albus versus Zarantharos. Zarantharos wins! Yeah, he does. Albus versus Jess Prodman. Now, this is not Demon Albus, this is regular Albus going up against Jess. Now, with all things considered, I think... yeah, no, Albus wins. Albus versus Vale. Albus wins. Albus versus Routh. Routh destroys Albus! Albus versus Elenus. Elenus is one of the legendary heroes of New Tennessee. The most combat-heavy one, so yeah, no, Albus definitely dies to Elenus, considering he also wielded the sword substantially longer and kept his sanity before losing it all. And Albus just picked up the sword and went fucking nuts. Although, granted, a lot of other factors were involved. It doesn't matter. Elenus kills Albus. Kills Albus. Albus versus Mortalis. Albus wins. Albus versus Grips. Grips wins. He can absorb all kinetic energy. He's basically untouchable. Albus versus King Andromeda. Okay, here's the thing. For those of you who know who King Andromeda is, this is obvious who wins here. However, because King Andromeda is basically buried as a character in terms of where he is in my stories and videos, I have to explain this. King Andromeda is the survivor of a galactic-level Highlander game. Look up what Highlander is and you'll know what I'm talking about. He's got incredible amounts of power and he is combat savvy for like thousands, maybe even millions of years. So what I'm saying is, it is a no contest. Albus loses. And finally, last but definitely not least, Albus versus Yargwin. Now this one is actually quite curious because you have Albus and you have Yargwin. Now Yargwin has demonic heritage. They're both incredibly savvy with combat. However, I think Albus would win because Yargwin has absolved never to kill anyone. Albus just kills. He kills. So yeah, Albus wins. Okay, I think that was everyone. I've probably missed a couple, especially since this video is going to be dated by the time I release the next couple videos. So maybe I'll make a part 2 if you guys are interested. Happy Christmas. Hope you guys are having a good day, and I will see you all in the future, at some point. I don't know when. Stop asking me these weird questions. Bye! Why are you still here? Go! Go! You have family who love you! We're all worried about you.